So the next session is going to be on agreements, again, from the perspective of entrepreneurs, because we lawyers, we all know the importance of agreements and contracts, but they don't know. So it's really about identifying what it is they don't know and filling in the gaps so that they can do things properly. So if we can get the next slide on contracts and agreements, that will be very, very helpful. Also, we will have a feedback session at the end. Well, not a feedback session per se. We'll share a link on feedback, presentation feedback. So we will really, really be grateful if you could share your feedback with us so we can always, improve on our presentations. Okay, so essential contracts and agreements for small businesses. They shouldn't take too long. Contracts 101. So nothing that you would not have heard of, nothing that you wouldn't have heard of, to be honest. So let's take the first page. Okay, so, we all know that businesses require basic legal documents to operate smoothly and seamlessly. Contracts themselves are legally binding, and, as we all know, contracts themselves must not be made under duress, otherwise that invalidates the contract. And most importantly, contracts can be freely made between consenting adults. Okay, next slide. So really, we need to just take a look at what are the key agreements and contracts that we need for our businesses. So you're all aware that e-commerce has really boomed. We have so many e-commerce businesses at the moment. E-commerce, in fact, that is one segment of the economy that I would say has grown steadily in the wake of the pandemic, because everybody is shifting and switching online because, people are still maybe afraid to go out, and, the numbers keep rising. So some people prefer to just, do their shopping online. So there's certain things we need to take cognizance of for websites. And this is something that we don't really discuss often enough, because people just shop on websites, and it's only until something goes wrong that they actually begin to ask, oh, okay, what are my rights? What are my rights? So one really important policy that any business website should have is a privacy policy. Okay, so the privacy policy itself details how the personal data of the people that patronize your website will be used. So I don't know if any of you have businesses which have websites, or perhaps you have your own law practice. You need to pay attention to some of these things. You have to have privacy policies. I know these privacy policies tend to have the fine print. Nobody ever reads it, or you just go and maybe cut and paste a privacy policy from the internet or something. But it's really good to draft these policies, or hire a professional lawyer to draft a good privacy policy that takes cognizance of the I would say GDPR, for instance, which is the global data protection rules. But although we don't have that level of data protection, we still need to take cognizance of at least the basics, okay? I know NITDA, they published something in February of last year as to how personal data should be utilized, not abused, because at the end of the day, the world is mostly online, and we need to recognize that data is like the new oil. How are we using our data? Are we using it properly? So we need to protect the data belonging to people that visit your website. You have to have the policies, the small print written at the bottom as to how their data will be managed, how it will be stored as well. In fact, it even goes as far as specific types of archiving, okay? And even the type of server that your business ought to have, the size of the server, is it encrypted? So there's so much we need to think about when we're running business websites, e-commerce websites. Then another thing we need to think about, the standard terms and conditions. I call these the T's and C's. All businesses have to have T's and C's. Okay. Again, when we're looking at, say, a sports business that's providing, say, talent management services to a sports talent, you need to outline, okay, what are the terms and conditions of this relationship we're going into? What do you expect from me? What do I expect from you in with respect to your obligations to me? You know, if these T's, if you enter into an arrangement as, say, a talent manager, and you don't even have, basic T's and C's, then you're literally opening up your business to liability. So we need to pay attention to what we are agreeing to with our clients and put it into a documentary format. Now, complaints policy. Again, this is something that we don't really pay attention to, particularly with, sports and entertainment industries. How do we deal with complaints? I would say complaints are handled a lot better in financial services, just by nature of the volume of people that use financial services products, and also because of the sensitive nature of financial services. You're dealing with people's money. So likewise, in the sports and entertainment industry, we need to have, structured complaints policies. If you're running an academy, does your academy have a complaints policy, a complaints procedure? If someone who buys a product from your clothing website, is there a returns policy? They buy it, it arrives at their home, they try it on, and it doesn't fit well. What happens next? Can they return it? Can they get a credit note? You see, because one thing I've noticed, we don't pay, it's the soft things we don't pay attention to that can end up costing us our reputation in business. And they say the best businesses are those that really listen to their clients. One thing Richard Branson always said is, I listen to every single complaint. Apparently he actually goes through the complaints logs and reads them, things like that. So if you treat every single customer of yours as if they're your only customer, you're more likely you're less likely to disappoint as a business. So, complaints policies, maybe in 2021, we need to pay attention more to customer service, because the way you handle complaints is pretty much an indication of your degree of customer service. How are you handling your customers? How is this documented? Is it written down? Do you have a complaints log where you log all the complaints that come in? And at the end of the day, data is key. So month on month, you're able to analyze your data and say, okay, I received 3 complaints in February. I received 1 complaint in January. That means potentially you're doing something right. So we really need to begin to pay attention to data, the data that we generate in our businesses. Then protecting your ideas and your works. One thing I tend to see a lot with creatives especially is, by nature of their creativity, they are bursting with ideas. I find creatives, they're constantly doing different things. We have one client in OAL, and this girl, in the space of 6 months, she's come along with like 3 different business ideas, and she's running all 3 at once. Now, I guess luckily for her, she doesn't really need the involvement of other people. So she didn't need NDAs per se, but you can imagine where you have loads of business ideas and it requires you maybe having to discuss it with another person. I find that creatives just tend to share ideas, maybe from ignorance or naivety, I don't know. But one habit creatives can begin to put into practice is, having NDAs, going into NDAs with potential partners, prospective partners. You don't necessarily know whether or not that business idea will work out. At the end of the day, majority of ideas never get executed, but at the same time, it's just good practice for business people protect themselves adequately, so no one comes later saying, oh, but that was my idea. In fact, I saw something really, really interesting the other day. Spotify are doing this Wrapped. I don't know if you're all familiar with Spotify. Spotify is a leading online music streaming platform. So they're doing this thing now at the end of the year, and it's called 2020 Wrapped Up. 2020 Wrapped Up is actually brilliant. What it does is it gives you the data analytics for everything you've listened to in 2020. So it tells you what was the most popular track you listened to. It tells you the genres you listen to, etc. And this girl on Twitter, she now comes on Twitter and she says, "Can you just imagine? I was the one that came up with the idea for 2020 Wrapped whilst I was an intern at Spotify." So people kept on going, oh, well, that's too bad. The corporates, that's what they're good at doing. They're good at exploiting people who are vulnerable. They're good at exploiting interns and stuff. So it just made me think, I don't know whether she's actually responsible for the 2020 Wrapped idea, but it just goes to show that you can even be in another business and you can contribute an idea. And I'm not saying sign an NDA with the business you're working for, but it will be good to somehow get something written that confirms that you are the originator of the idea. So, we really need to protect our ideas, especially, in this day and age where things move so quickly. Same thing goes for confidentiality agreements. We need to get into the habit of signing these agreements, get our clients to sign these agreements to protect their ideas. Can move to the next slide. So more essential business contracts that we need to think about for talent management. I mean, you can have player contracts. I think that goes without saying. We typically find a setup where you've got a grassroots club and they have all these amazing talent, and they ask the coach, "Oh, don't worry, coach. We'll split the money with you when we transfer the player out." So, there's so many oral gentlemen's agreements that are had in certain industries, some more than the other. So I think we really need to get into the habit of telling our clients, look, we need to have contracts. Even if you look at this player and think, oh, he's a nobody, he's just from here or he's just from there, you need to have contracts with them, because those contracts will then be translated into, like their transfer management records. So you need to have just a way to document everything. I believe in documenting everything, because when a dispute arises, and my colleague Joseph will take us through disputes, it will stand for you, the terms and conditions. Employment contracts, again, service contracts. I mean, there's not enough time to go through all these things, but creatives, please, you need to have service contracts. It's not a case of, oh, I'm a makeup artist, don't worry, I'll come on your production set, I'll do makeup for so and so. You need to have agreements with, and I guess this is would be relevant to Wanuala, who is an accountant to a production company. Encourage your clients to have service agreements with every single third-party vendor. Even the people that are providing security services have an agreement. I mean, again, we saw in one of our projects, the clothier, the person who provides the wardrobe for the actors, was supposed to provide, say, 10 outfits per actor, but in the end couldn't meet up, so they changed the terms. I don't think there was actually, there was a written contract, but they ended up deviating from the contract because she couldn't meet up. She just kept on falling below standards. So in the end, the clothier now demanded for her full payment, not even though she wasn't able to deliver her side of the bargain. So can you imagine what would have happened if there was no agreement in place? So we really need to get our clients to please put in place service contracts, okay? And then work for hire. Let me just say something quickly about work for hires. You have instances where you have an independent contractor, yeah, hired to do a piece of work for, say, a film production. So maybe the graphic designer that was hired to do the logo, okay? Now, if work for hires, I'm not quite sure how it works in Nigeria, but in the States, a work for hire automatically assumes that the intellectual property is owned by the company that has hired you, the contractor. So don't assume that because you are the designer that has been engaged, whatever you produce will be yours. If you want to retain your IP, you need to have it indicated in your contract that I am the graphic designer for motion pictures X, and I retain IP rights, or the IP rights will be reassigned back to me after X number of years. So this is just something that creatives really need to pay attention to, because I know I saw an instance where was that particular movie called Living in Bondage, yeah? So Living in Bondage 2, there was someone who had done a bit of work on that movie, and the person came out on Twitter. I don't know why they keep coming out on Twitter. It's like Twitter is like their venting board. So they came out and were complaining that I did this piece of work, they didn't acknowledge me, they didn't give me my credits. At the end of the day, it depends on what was signed. So if you don't pay attention as a creative to the terms that you want to retain your IP, then unfortunately, you might as well be signing away your IP rights. So creatives really need to pay attention to these things. Then business ventures, same thing. If you're starting up a new business in 2021, maybe a logistics business, maybe I keep talking about film production companies, don't I? Maybe a new football academy. I'm begging you, if you invite other promoters into the business, have a shareholders agreement. I mean, I can even tell you from experience, I also set up a business once and I didn't have an executed shareholder agreement. And needless to say, it caused a lot of tension when things went wrong. Shareholders agreements are very necessary because it will determine who is the chairman, how does it rotate? Who is the CEO for how long? Who is the chairman? It will determine whose role is whose. One source of conflict a lot in business is where people don't assign roles, and you find people encroaching on other people's roles. Oh, you said that you were going to raise the funding, but you're not doing it, so I decided to do it. Or you are supposed to be client manager, but so it's very important that we set expectations by putting it in the shareholders agreement format. Also, the shareholders agreement would cover things like business continuity. In the event that that one of the promoters die, do the shares revert back to the estate of the promoter, or does it get assigned to the other shareholder? So there's so many things that business people really need to think about, especially in the new year. We can move on to the next slide, or if I'm done, then I suppose, is there another slide? Okay, so just a couple of tips for business people and creatives. Don't say that legal services or accountancy services are too expensive. Don't want to qualify that statement by saying expert, because not all legal advisors are cut from the same cloth, okay? Please don't sign contracts without getting third-party professional advice. And don't enter into contractual relationships without fully understanding your obligations. Like when I look at what happened with although she's not creative, she's from the tech sector. I'm sure most of you would have heard about the spat between the founder of Health Plus and her investors. It makes you wonder, where was the due diligence? This is what we're going to discuss in more detail later on. Where was the due diligence? Was she not aware that when investors were going to put money into the business, that there will be obligations on her part? So let's not plead ignorance. Ignorance is no excuse under the law, okay? Whatever obligations you sign up to, that's it. You'll be committed to signing it on, and the only way to get out of it will probably be to seek, litigation. But I don't really advocate litigation. Would be to seek alternative dispute resolution, which we'll talk about again in more detail. So, professionals really need to play their part and provide that value. Thank you so much, Wanola, for that comment. I think that's it, actually. I've been told that I need to hurry up. So yes, that's it. So that's my session on regulatory and compliance. I think we're going to be moving to, so thank you so much. We're going to be moving to tax with Ifatu. So thanks once again for listening.